Good afternoon, audience. This is episode 3 of Still Rolling with your host, myself, Josh Allen, and joining us today is the delightful Casey Hennessy. So this is Still Rolling. Hey, you can say hello to people. It's all good.
Hi.
So this is episode 3 of Still Rolling, essentially the podcast which just gives us a nice relaxing moment to enjoy the industry that we have and meet a few guests that have some interesting stories. Casey herself is a writer-director, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about what she's up to. But because we want to give you guys, the audience at home, a bit of a rundown on who the people are that we're talking to, we thought we'd devise, well, this is my idea. I thought we'd devise a little questionnaire to help us get to know Casey today. I don't actually know Casey. I found Casey via the International Women's Day Women's Racing film that you did.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way you're supposed to agree with me. Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, that one.
So I found Casey via the International Women's Day film she did before Women's Racing series, and discovered a bit about her and the work that she's done, and thought it'd be a wonderful idea for her to join me on the show today. And she was kind enough to oblige. She doesn't know what she's in for yet, but we've got a few questions for her. First of all,
you did tell me it was live. Yeah,
I didn't tell her it was live.
You did tell me it was live. Yeah,
I kept.
No, I'm.
How are you doing, Casey? How are you?
Given the circumstances, I'm good. Yeah.
Given the circumstances, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're doing good anyway. You're looking well, so it's all good. Right.
Thanks.
Hopefully you're okay with my little pop quiz that I've devised here. I've got a few questions for you to help the audience get to know you and also get to know a bit about myself as well. The kind of questions I've picked and the answers you give. So, are you ready for question 1?
I'm ready.
Excellent. How do you feel about movie talkers? We're talking about people that talk through movies, in movies, chatterboxes, general know-it-alls, those kinds of people. How do you feel about them?
Just no. Absolutely no. Don't do it.
Flat no. Just a flat no. That's all good.
A flat no. Yeah, flat no.
Flat no. All right, cool. That's good enough. Question 2. This one's a tricky one, but I want honesty. Have you ever lied on your CV and, for the American audience, resume to get a job?
Say that one again.
Have you ever lied on your CV/resume to get a job?
No, I'm very honest.
It's all right. You need to be honest with us here. I can see it in your face. That was trepidation. That was. That
wasn't. I'm very honest. Maybe.
Audience, listeners, we've got an honest person with us today. It's all good. This is all part and parcel of the fun. We get to know a bit about you. We've got an honest person with us. It's all good. Right. Question 3. Now, this is a tricky one, but think about your answer.
Okay.
What would 5-year-old you think of you now? Take your time. Have a think.
I think 5-year-old me would be proud of me.
Excellent. That's an excellent sign that you're living a solid life of things that you're proud of. What kind of 5-year-old kid were you? Were you a daredevil? You running around skate parks and stuff like that?
I don't really remember being 5, but my parents tell me that I was very bossy. I was allowed to dress myself. I kind of look like I'm 5 today.
Got the dungarees on. It's all good. I'd be sporting them too.
Yeah. I've still got my playfulness, so yeah, I think 5-year-old me would be pretty proud. Yeah,
it's all good. It's not a complicated one. We don't have to overthink it. Question number 4. It's an easy one. Well, it's actually not that easy because there's a bit of depth to it, but we can get into that. If you could use any song in a film, what would it be? Obviously, we're talking about copyright is an issue for us filmmakers. A lot of people understand that there's a lot of songs you get attached to when you're trying to think about making a film. Maybe there's a reference film you've submitted as a film you wanted to make, or even a short film you're thinking about making. There might be a song in your mind that you've gone, you know what, I want to use that, but then that nasty copyright gets in the way.
Oh, that's too tough. That is really tough.
We get to learn about music taste. It doesn't have to be one song. It could be multiple songs.
I don't think I could properly answer that, but the song that I've been listening to on repeat when I've been doing my drives to the supermarket and has felt like I've been in a film is listening to David Bowie's Under Pressure. and just having a little film moment as I'm driving along like country lanes and just thinking just like how surreal it is.
I see it. Well, good choice. Big Barry fan myself as well. So Under Pressure, there you go. Not bad at all. Would you use it in a film though? Would you use it in a film? Can you think of a time when you might?
No, it just reminds me. Yeah, it's been in the film Girl Next Door, so right. That's what it just reminds me of. So I probably wouldn't use that, but no, that's too hard of a question.
Nah, fair enough. I mean, it's one of those things. You either had an answer for it straight away, or we were going to trip you up all over the place. And I feel like I've been a bit mean with your questions, so I'm going to totally skip on the last one because that's a real mean question.
Tell me. Okay.
We'll come back to that later because we'll just indulge that for fun. Ultimately, the premise of getting you on today was to obviously talk a bit about yourself, a bit about what you're about, but what you do. Obviously, I touched on the introduction there, talking about the International Women's Day film you made for women's racing. It's a fascinating project to me because I saw it pop up and I started recognizing faces that I knew. One of those was Abby Eaton, actually, who's obviously the driver on the Grand Tour with the likes of Jamie Clarkson, etc., etc. How did you actually get involved with that project? Because it was just, for me, it just looked really cool, but there's a lot of things that stuck out to me about it. How did you even get involved with that project?
Completely off my own initiative with that one. I think I wasn't necessarily going through a bit of a rut, but getting into automotive commercials, I think, is very, very difficult. And people kind of ask how you get into it. And I think I had a little period of where work was quiet and I was doing research and, you're sending out emails and stuff. And then I actually just stumbled on W Series. I didn't know they existed because they'd only just set up last year. And I was reading about them and how they were trying to champion women in F1 and try and get more women into the sport because of all the kind of, I don't know, it's all centered around money and sponsorship, and it's all about your exposure, and it's so hard for those women to get that exposure. So I was like, I love what they're doing, and I just sent them a cold email, which usually never ever works.
Series, yeah. I got that right. Straight to the W Series, yeah.
Straight to W Series. Gotcha. And they got back to me, and I don't know if it was because it kind of showed that I had a genuine enthusiasm and passion for what they're doing. Or maybe it was just luck, but they got back to me and they liked my stuff. And they just so happened to be doing a very small kind of shoot, and they were too busy to meet up for a coffee initially, but they were like, do you want to come along to this shoot and just get some, pick up some bits? So normally I'm the one directing, not really operating the camera, but I just went along with the camera, and it was the launch of their new sponsor and their new car with Jamie Chadwick, and just filmed a little kind of promo piece for that. And then that's how our relationship started. And then just got chatting.
So that the commercial that you did for them, that wasn't the piece.
Yeah, exactly. And the Women's Day piece was it came out of saying, what can we make for you? How can we tackle the problem of getting more people exposed to this and supporting these racers and helping them in their career? And it was International Women's Day that was coming up. And it seemed like the perfect platform to expose what they do to an audience beyond motorsport, because I think there are a lot of people out there that they don't necessarily know they might be interested in watching it. It's something that might not appeal to them, but W Series shares the same values, which is about encouraging equality and celebrating women's achievements. So that day was kind of like our deadline. It's like, what can we make for that? Let's kind of just make this empowering film for it. And they totally bought into it, and they were an absolute dream to work with.
That's really good to know. It was a thing that I saw that certainly attracted me to coming and checking out your work. So if we've got Jake with us, we'll actually tee up that clip. So we'll let the clip do the talking, I think. I'll just see if he's actually with us right now. We've got the wonderful Jake Ratcliffe from CVP in the background here, hopefully. Who's going to hopefully help us tee up a clip. and it's not happening. Okay, we'll get back to that in a minute. I was going to let the kid do the talking for me, but I could just talk it out myself. It's incredibly well shot for one, but it's well put together. But the thing that I often find with these kind of small commercials that try and focus on empowerment, try and focus on trying to achieve too much in a commercial spot, there's seldom do people really get it right. And one of the things that really stuck out for me in that regard was seeing it and going, wow, this is something that doesn't feel corny. It doesn't feel twee. Jake's back with us. He's going to play.
Sorry.
So, all good, Jake. All good. Jake, can you play the W Series clip, please, for us? International Women's Day. There we go. And we've got it on screen now, so we can actually talk about it. So a lot of the things that stood out for me was the fact that I've got a lot of people I know that work within motorsport, work a lot within automotive work as well. And I'm lucky enough to have some friends that are racing drivers as well. I would consider Abby Eaton a friend. We did work together once upon a time. She hopefully remembers me now. She's rich and famous. Not sure about rich and famous, but definitely famous. She's doing incredibly well for me. I'm really, really happy for her. But as soon as I saw those kind of faces popping through here, I was like, that's so cool. The fact they've really got like legit racing drivers in this spot. It's not just like oh yeah, cool, have a look at this kind of thing. It is a legit thing. And obviously, I'm sure that's testament to your research and actually doing an incredible job on putting this together. It wasn't just let's send a camera crew to go and film some people at a racetrack. It was, I'm sure, you can talk to us about this kind of thing. What kind of work went into this background? Did you go and meet some drivers?
No, actually. I didn't have that luxury. The reason why all the drivers were together in the same place was because they had a week-long training camp to kind of prepare them for the new season, which unfortunately has been put on hold because of everything happening, just like F1. And W Series said, we've got all these women in one place. That was another reason for we've got like a couple of days where we can do some filming. What can we do for it? And that's how it tied in. But there was no way I was able to meet the women beforehand. The only one that I'd met was Jamie Chadwick on the shoot before. So it was literally the day before when they had a very small break and they'd all flew in from different places. So I think they were a little bit tired, a little bit jet lagged. And
fortunately, it doesn't show, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's good. And then it was just kind of briefing them on what they were talking about. And I think they felt the pressure just as much as I did. But on the day, they were absolutely great. And I'm glad that you said it struck the balance of kind of empowering without being cheesy, because we had so many good sound bites and them talking passionately about being a woman in motorsport, but it being more than that. But so we did cull a lot. We didn't want it to be like too wordy, too talking heads.
Gotcha.
So I'm glad it struck.
For me, it certainly strikes a balance. If anyone wants to check that out, it is on your Vimeo channel, right?
Yes, and on my website as well.
Yeah, so you can check out Casey Hennessy's website. I'm sure we can find some links as we go through this sort of stuff to check the balance there. But no, I'm glad that we could have a quick chat about that because, well, we share the automotive passion and the car world and that sort of stuff. So it was something that really stuck out about the work for me.
How did you get into automotive?
Jeez, that is a good question. Wow. I don't know if we've got enough time to get into that sort of stuff, to be fair. Fine skimmery, to be fair.
You said I could ask you questions back.
I'll go with it. We'll just gloss over it. When I was a kid, I'm not sure who in my family is going to be offended by me saying this, but I think I was about 4, maybe 5 years old, and we used to go and hang out with my uncle in the Welsh countryside. They were fortunate enough to have a place out there, and we'd spend our summers out there. And we showed up one day. It was our birthdays. Me and my brother share a birthday pretty much. We're only a day apart, even though we're 2 years different. We show up at his house, and there's a Peugeot 205 1.9 GTI sitting there. Now, we were young, but we knew that wasn't his car. And he's like, happy birthday. We're like 5 and 7 at this point in time. So it's like, let's go to the field, and basically spent the next, I don't even know how long, a long time doing handbrake turns, skidding the thing around a field for, I don't know how long. And only after the fact were we told that it was a stolen, recovered car that had been left on the land. And we were allowed to go and basically run amok and be absolute lunatics in the backyard. So that's absolutely where the whole automotive thing started. As far as the industry is concerned, there's so much ground to cover here. I don't even know where to start. Maybe ask a little bit about maybe something else, and we'll get back to that one. We'll come back to automotive, I think.
Okay, I like that story though.
It's all good. It's all good. That's where it started, and that was the most important thing. That was the inception of it all. I got prepared this week as well. I've got some topics that I want to discuss with you. Okay. So I've gone through a few things. So next up, I really wanted to talk to you. I mean, we touched a little bit on this, the opportunities in the industry. It'd be great. Obviously, you mentioned the W Series opportunity was very much you being proactive. For me, something that becomes interesting, I talked to the last two guests about it a little bit. It's kind of not only just getting the work, but how your personal process perhaps works in that regard. Like, is it kind of like just going out after opportunities and emailing people and kind of just throwing it out there, or is it more methodical than that, or is it kind of like right, that's where I'm headed and I'm going to go and get that?
It's not methodical. I'm not repped kind of exclusively by any production company. I've got no one kind of pushing me, so it is just like go and find things yourself, which is why I approached W Series, because if you're passionate about it, I think you can shine through more. If you're kind of just going at it against everyone for everything and your work doesn't really speak any of that, then I don't think you're really going to stand out. But I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I think it is very hard to break into, especially the car stuff.
Yeah.
Because, like, we all know that it requires a lot of toys and it's supposedly bigger budgets. And you have directors that have been doing it for years, and they have like.
It's certainly tough when you're looking at the toy shed, going like, "Oh, we need this, this, and this." But we're lucky that Stefan, in the last episode, I don't know if you have fortunate enough to catch it yet, but he talks about just utilizing what's available to you in that regard. And of course, it's really easy to get daunted, especially in automotive, where it's like, "Oh, cool, we're not just filming people here. Well, we can kind of, get it together and fluff things together, whether it be a steady cam shot or whether it be something that's slightly more complicated." But when it comes to cars, you can't exactly strap yourself to the outside of a car. You certainly can. I've definitely done that. But there are ways and means of getting around these sorts of things, to be fair.
Yeah. I think it's tough for an emerging director to get into that world. I feel like it's kind of protected in a way. I don't know why, but it does feel like that slightly. Maybe that's just me.
No, I would agree with you. I definitely felt like that for a long time, and it was very strange actually that it almost felt like. Well, certainly when I started getting into it, it felt like that was the industry over there, and this was me over here, and it would be a while until I felt a part of that situation. And I don't know, like you said, I don't know if that's perhaps part of a self-confidence thing or a perspective thing, or if that is real. I would say there's probably been a couple of moments in my own career where I felt adopted, like the door was kind of opened. It was like, come this way. Like you've almost paid your dues enough. You've suffered enough to you've worked hard enough.
So what was the turning point then?
Sorry?
What was the turning point?
Oh, wow. There's been a couple. More recently, I was very fortunate enough to be in Los Angeles, and we were just at the end of a film that we completely took a punt on, if I'm completely honest. We were presented with an opportunity, and it was like, well, this is going to happen, and this might happen, but if you want to be there with cameras, then you're the ones that are going to get the opportunity. So I decided to go with it, basically. Ended up filming in the US, this whole crazy event. I wish I could talk about it more, but it's definitely it's one of those things that is just about to potentially get distributed right now. So we can talk about it.
Don't jinx it.
We don't jinx it. But essentially what happened was we ended up filming the thing. The thing that was supposed to happen, we'll fill in the blanks later, happened. The event that was supposed to unfold happened. And then we were looking at these shots just going, we've got it. We've got the pieces to the puzzle that makes this film complete, essentially. And I was looking around people that I had connections with in order to figure out the next step. And it was like, I'm very lucky that I've got access to a handful of people that can help connect those dots, whether they be in acquisitions. For the audience at home, that's basically the people that buy the film, whether it be from a network or a broadcaster, or type of people that would be able to help figure out what distribution even meant, how to figure out a film deal and all these kind of things. And I was very fortunate that I had a relationship with a grader out in Los Angeles, a very small one. We'd just been talking and we're just fans of each other's work. And I hit him up and I just said, hey, well, I've got some shots and it would be cool to show you because I'd love to work with it, work with you on it. And I pretty much just kind of explained the situation to him and assumed that he was going to say oh, come and hang out for a coffee or something. He invited me into their head office, which I'll hopefully be able to reveal soon, and just said, come and hang out in the boardroom. And I was just like, what is this place? Oh, there's a grading suite for Star Wars over there. This Marvel movie is getting mastered over here. And I was just like, what is happening? But that conversation led on to the conversation, which is, well, we've got this film. We don't know what to do with it. And he's like, well, what do you need, Josh? And I was just like, I don't even know. I know we need to get it finished and it needs to be to a certain standard in order to get broadcasted. So what's next? And he literally says, oh, let me just see if this person's in the building. And they were a sales agent for the company. And I had them in the room within 5 minutes. A conversation we had led to them saying, oh, I've got the guy for you. He might not be interested, no promises, but maybe. She literally left the room, came back 5 minutes later. I've emailed that person. He's emailed me back immediately and they're interested. And I was just like, it was for sure a pinch me moment. It was just like, what? From there, he invited me round to their offices. By the time I'd driven around the block to their offices, my name was already on the wall. And it was just the most surreal, insane experience ever. And that's kind of what I mean by these moments. It's like, for me, everything up to now has been gradual, very, very gradual. And that moment was like, this is a film company and a studio, essentially. People that make, for me, what were real films on real things. And everything up to that was not very tangible. So it was just kind of fascinating to sort of have those moments. I mean, for me, looking into a bit of your bio and stuff, I'm sure from your perspective, things like I know that you've got a short film project coming up, right? You've been working on a short film project?
Yeah, but it was actually meant to shoot the other weekend, but...
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we don't talk about that. No, yeah, I've got a film project coming up, which is I've started to get into more narrative stuff, purely out of wanting to explore my own stories, really.
Is that the ambition beginning? Was the ambition always narrative and scripted stuff, or?
No, it wasn't always at all. I was totally in love with advertising at one point, and I'm still interested by it, but I think I want to create more stuff, my own personal stuff with some more meaning. So I'm balancing the two. I'm still enjoying doing the car commercials.
The fun shit, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
With fun stuff.
Well, yeah, I think if you're not interested in cars doing them, then you're going to find them pretty boring after a while. But luckily I am.
A non-car director gets booked on a car job and you're like, why not us? Why were we not there?
Yeah. And they just think you're a nerd if you do know about it.
Like, nothing wrong with that. That's the thing. I found that word nerd is definitely has the wrong connotations attached to it when it comes to this industry. The biggest nerds I've found would be the ones that actually know what they're doing and end up doing the best work. So
not at all. I champion the nerds.
Good on you. We're talking more about this narrative stuff anyway. So we've got, I did make a note of it and I definitely have lost my note on it, which is not the end of the world. So you can talk about it.
Okay.
Name of the short film.
The short film in development is called Tranquil Town, which actually comes from a derogatory name for the town I grew up in. Or so I'm told, because
it's cool.
I don't have to explain. And it is a coming of age drama / comedy about two teenagers who break into their local giant supermarket overnight to commemorate the last night of being together before one of them moves away from their hometown for good. So it's like this bittersweet sort of story about growing up. And we did have a location, a huge supermarket, and then COVID hit, so it's all on hold. But it's
It sounds like something you could still shoot, though, if I'm honest.
Oh yeah. Well, it's all been greenlit. It's being supported by the BFI and Freya Films, so it's all there. The money is secure. It can be shot.
For one, congratulations. I've
heard
of the BFI for sure.
Good.
How did you even go about that? I mean, I was part of the process of my career at the moment. It's definitely been ongoing in terms of discovering these routes for film funding, especially as I work towards more narrative routes myself as well. But I mean, they don't just give money out for nothing, you know. How do you go about that process?
That there are no shortcuts, unfortunately. It's a long process. It's just submitting the application to their program, and then seeing if you get through that. And then I got through that stage, and then it was a development, like a table read, a script read with actors around a table, and you've got a few different scripts in the room.
Or BFI provided?
No, they provide. They don't act it out. It's just they're just reading out the scripts.
Gotcha.
And then you develop it a little bit more, and then they only pick a handful of those out of that to develop. So it's super competitive.
So that's part of the process, the table read, yeah.
It's a part of their like whittling down.
Gotcha.
To get the money for that, and even then. Wasn't awarded the full amount, so then you've got to look for other areas of funding. So we applied to something called Genera, which is another scheme for short film funding.
I mean, I feel like I'm still obliged to give the audience a bit more context here, because I know there's definitely, well, within CVP's audience, there's certainly a whole bunch of budding filmmakers who are looking to make their mark on either short film or narrative in that regard. So talk to me a bit more about that whole process. You say, obviously, do you come to them with like, say, you know, I'm completely ignorant of the process. You go, hey, BFI, can I have X money? And they go, all right, well, we're going to give you X on the basis of whatever. How does that kind of process even work, you know?
No, it is really long-winded. Like, I thought kind of trying to get commercial gigs was hard. This is like, it feels like it's next level, because you're asking for smaller amounts of money, and there seems to be more people trying to get into it. I had to submit, you have to submit with a producer. So you need to get a producer that is all up for your vision and is willing to kind of support you and write the application, because the producer has to submit the application. So it helps if they're kind of reputable, but you want them at the level where they're still willing to do short films, because it takes a lot out of you. They don't pay well. They don't pay at all. You kind of lose money on them.
If you're looking for a good person, then it's going to be enthusiastic enough to actually help.
Yeah, that level before short films are like beyond them. So that's a struggle. And then you have a very lengthy application process where you've got to really know your story. Basically, you need to know what it is, why you want to tell it, why.
Right? You know, you want to have thought about every element of it. Certainly, that was a bit of a wake up call for me when I was like, oh, cool, I'll just write a film. That'll be easy. I have ideas. I know what scenes are. I know what dialogue are. And then you go like, I wrote an idea and I thought I had a good one. And you get so far through the process, and then you're like, oh, there's layers to this. There's depth to this that needs to be explored. You know, a character being one dimensional, that's just not good enough. You know, especially if you're asking someone else to give you some money to make it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I've been just learning how to write, because that's not something I studied, or I didn't know anything about scene structure. So I just kind of had to figure all that out as well.
So you didn't do the film school route. You didn't do the conventional education.
No. I went to uni. I did design, but I didn't do film school. So that it's just I've just kind of figured it all out, I guess. One thing I did do with the application though, which I think probably it's didn't harm me at all was to make a director's vision kind of treatment thing, because I'm used to doing treatments. I thought I need to sell that visually. I also made a little mood.
Advertising world, the treatment from the advertising world.
Yeah.
Is that what? Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. I made one of those, but I think it was probably more related to the story and the characters, and less so kind of. But I think you still do like the aesthetic of it, but at that stage, I think they're more interested in the story rather than what it looks like. You need to have a strong story, and making a mood film probably helped bring it to life as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, the treatment element of this whole procedure, a lot of people get stuck there. They go like, well, I've got the idea, and then just like finding the way to explain it. It's not just like the script and the story. It's like, this is how I'm going to make it happen. This is the tone. These are the themes. All these kind of things come into it. I know a lot of people get stuck there. So it's interesting to hear that your experience within your actual working environment enabled you to put that together coherently in a way that you were obviously happy to submit it, and it was successful, right?
Yeah, I think I've always been very visual. So the hardest part for me was the actual writing of the script. That was the most difficult bit. But from then onwards,
did you that writing, or did you just wing it?
No, it went through like various drafts and just getting used to that process. My boyfriend's a screenwriter, so he's also getting into directing. So he'll ask me things about directing, and he'll give me tips on screenwriting. So trying to learn. He actually studied writing, so that massively helped me. Although I felt like I didn't have the patience. I think, like you said, you have an idea and you're just like, yeah, I've got ideas, I just write them down. But they need to all slot within each other, and there needs to be like dramatic moments and all that stuff.
Find the focus to get that down. And like you said, yeah, those dramatic moments is like, oh, there's a plot point and these things have to culminate, and it's not just people talking and doing action stuff. Like, I can think of something interesting, but how are these people supposed to coexist in this environment, in this universe that you've created?
Exactly. It's tough.
It's interesting to me as well, because I get to hear, well, not only myself and my opinions, but you hear about how different people sort of determine how they're going to learn to write. And the one thing I've sort of understood about writers in general is that everyone has a different process. Some obviously, like your other half there, has gone and learned screenwriting. Some people have just kind of like, cherry picked different resources from different environments and kind of like, oh, I'm going to take a leaf out of that person's book or whatever, And for me, looking at other writers, I think BAFTA, for example, do some really good resources where you can go and listen to talks about screenwriting and those sorts of things. Suddenly, I'm not even necessarily just hearing other people's experience, but understanding simply that everyone has a different process was a bit of a wake-up call for me. It wasn't like there's one route to screenwriting and you kind of learn how to screenwrite and then you do it, as opposed to being like there's opportunities. There's different ways you can get involved with it. And certainly everyone has their own process. That was a bit of a like, oh, I can kind of take my time with this. Even hearing that other people had taken a long time to write like great films. And I was just like, oh, wow, it took years for that person to write that thing. It's by no means a really short process for everyone necessarily. So,
but then you hear of writers that have wrote a feature in like 2 weeks, and you're just like, fuck you.
It's sickening, isn't it? It's like, what? How can that not happen to me? You go and sit there like this, and like even a few hours is like, it just requires absolute 100% focus, which is obviously required. It needs to be good, but at the same time, finding focus for me, especially in consider myself a visual thinker like yourself, it's not always the easiest thing to sit down and just do one thing without getting distracted.
I find it easier to write at night, I think, in just like little chunks. Like, I know a lot of people, they like really early in the morning when there are no distractions. But yeah, like you said, everyone has a completely different process. And I'm not a natural writer, I don't think. It takes practice. But yeah, just even if you write just like a tiny little bit each day or every other day, I find that helps.
That definitely makes sense to me. Certainly within my own experience, going like, all right, I'm going to commit just to writing a bit now, rather than trying to focus on writing a whole film at once. or even a whole scene. Like I've just got a segment, an idea. I'm just going to put that down, and then it becomes a bit habitual. Suddenly, I'm becoming a writer. I might not have been one, but I'm starting to feel like one over a period of time.
And it doesn't matter if it's shit. Like that's the whole point of it. That is.
I mean, in all honesty, yeah, it's a very, 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 very important point. It's like just commit ideas to page, and it might not be. I mean, that's quite a surprising thing. When you put your idea down, it's like, oh, that wasn't very good when you've written it, when you read it back to yourself. But it's not necessarily the most obvious thing when you're writing it.
Yeah, or when it's in your head.
Yeah, well, it's like, oh, that was a really good, and you just read it back, and you're like, Do you find yourself getting precious about showing other people your work in that regards?
Yeah, I'm becoming less precious, especially with I felt like a massive fraud when I first started writing my own stuff. But then when you share it with a few select people, it definitely makes it better. If you just keep it to yourself, I don't think you grow as much.
Interesting. I suppose, obviously, with the opportunities with the BFI and stuff, you had no choice but to just simply submit and be like, cool, is it good enough or not?
Yeah, and then you need to know your story inside out and just talk about it eloquently. So you've got to just like, I don't know, raise up to it.
I get you. All right, next, I got my little topic list as well. I got a couple more things I want to talk to you about. In your bio, it said you made, in your own words, shit skate videos. Your words, not mine. I tried to find these skate videos with the help of our research team.
You will not find them, no. You won't find them because they haven't been digitized and they don't exist on YouTube or anywhere. I actually found that because my parents moved and they were clearing out a load of stuff. And when I was a teenager, I hung out with like lots of skaters, and I actually got into making skate films because I took media as a GCSE. And they said you can either.
Every filmmaking career starts.
Yeah, you could either make a magazine or you could make a film. And I think everyone wanted the easy route, so they made a magazine. I think one person made a horror film because that's what you do. And I decided to make a skate film, but I couldn't do any work in class because you're not allowed to go out and just like have fun. So I was constantly like being told off, like, where's your work? I'm like, oh, I'm making it like after school. I'm making it at weekends, and then submitting it at the end of the year. And it's like people's reactions to watching that, like people that weren't interested in skating, like it was a terrible skate film, mainly because the skating in it was shit.
We'll never know. We can't see it. You haven't got the evidence here, and I couldn't find it.
I think I'll put it out there eventually, but I think I would die from embarrassment of how cringy it is now.
If I have access to my early projects, they would be out there. I would still be hiding from them for sure, but they'd be out there.
Okay, I might release it then. Do a premiere.
Please do. Let us know where it is, and we'll make sure we have a conversation about it. We'll have a watch party. It'll be good fun.
But yeah, I think that was my little bit of escapism. But I never wanted to get into film. It was never something that crossed my mind, because to me that was just that wasn't a career. That was just having fun back then. And then
that's such an important part of the process, though, isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it a couple of times with the last guys as well. It's like there's kind of this moment at the beginning of your career where you're like, oh, I really enjoy this fun element of it. And then it kind of goes, oh, I've got to take this seriously because work's the thing. I've got to earn some money. And then, like, for me, I kind of got lost in that process a little bit. You go like, oh, what? I'm not having fun anymore. Like, where did that go? And then you kind of like go, oh, I can kind of figure this out again. We don't actually have to take this as seriously as you kind of trick yourself into thinking that. Did you find that sort of similar process for yourself, or no?
Yeah, I think that's the reason why I started doing my narrative stuff, because I'm like, I thought I wanted to have fun, and by doing that, and then you realise all the hard work that goes into it. But no, I still make like even if it's not film, I still have creative outlets that are a bit of that are fun, and they don't need to have meaning assigned to them. Like in lockdown, I've just been getting more like back into doing artwork after watching like Grayson's Art Club, and I think I've kind of been trying to not do anything film related because of it feels like there's all this pressure to still be kind of working and putting yourself out there. And now that we're allowed to supposedly shoot and stuff, it's just like,
Yeah, that's been a bit of a, broadside, I guess. Like, oh, by the way, we can go and kind of get back to work now. It's like, what? Who's working? What? When? How did that
Nobody.
happen? I mean, you mentioned a couple of the creative outlets. The reason why I'm kind of fixated on that is because there's certainly, in my own perspective, understanding that at the beginning, again, going full circle in this whole like, right, at the beginning there was fun and there was probably subjects that you picked. I mean, we've talked a bit about automotive and things and skating. I guess kind of point I'm making here is that there seem to be ways and means of kind of cultivating your own kind of creativity in these ways. And I feel like I don't know, I feel like maybe a lot of people focus too much on sort of like having to commit to ideas rather than just going out and shooting and having fun. I realise that's a little bit limited now, but I don't know. That's why I brought up the skate stuff and I brought up the other things as well. But it's just kind of interesting to know from your perspective, really.
I'm kind of jealous of that. Like I do still want to be doing that sort of stuff, but I think just as I've grown up, I just don't hang around with skaters in skate parks anymore, as I probably would still like to make those sort of films.
Casey, I hate to pause you for a second. We're just going to pause for a sec because Jake's just going to swap service because we're lagging a little bit. So, Jake,
Currently lost Josh. Give me a second.
Oh.
hopefully we're back with you now.
He's there. You're there
I'm
with
back.
us. You're there with
back.
us in Hong Kong,
Excellent.
but not back in Europe. Two seconds, Josh. Let's try and switch back to Europe.
Okay, no problem.
There we go. You're with us now. Cool. There you go.
Okay, we're back in the room, guys. Sorry about that minor pause. We're just switching servers as we find a better internet connection. The wonderful world of this technology that I don't seem to understand. Didn't mean to interrupt you there, Casey. Please accept my apology.
I completely forgot what I was talking about.
It's all right. You're talking about hanging around with skaters. And to be fair, I wasn't necessarily going to admit this, but I've only just recently started taking up skateboarding, and it's proven pretty treacherous. Do you actually skate yourself?
No, I did. And my brother, who is notoriously bad at buying presents, but he got me a late birthday present and sent it to the house, and it was a deck like designed by my favorite skater.
No way.
And so I was considering whether to have a piece of artwork on the wall or to like take up skateboarding, which is probably not the right thing. It
sounds like the best idea. For sure it does.
I would break a bone, and that's not what the NHS need right now.
That is true. Okay, I like your responsible way of turning that round there. I definitely can't retort to that without sounding really mean. So, in your own time, take up skateboarding, but not right now. That's absolutely fair enough. I do find it honestly fascinating, though, how many people, I don't know, I want to say find creativity, but within extreme sports communities, whether it be skateboarding, surfing, or whatever, I find myself, again, right now, we've got the opportunity to sort of go and have a look at some different types of films. And actually, one of the things I found myself doing at the moment is actually looking at people's work that I should have been doing. You know, I hate to make excuses, but with time and everything, but going actually finding these different kind of movies and seeing what kind of things people are making. I find myself trawling YouTube, like looking up different kind of creative videos, but it's interesting to sort of see how many people come from that background. And that's why I mentioned the skate thing anyways, but we'll move on. We'll move on into the depths of some more responsible conversation. The one thing I did want to talk to you about as well, I mean, we're going to look at one of your short film scenes in a minute because Well, you know what? Actually, Jake, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to tee up this scene. Casey,
Sure thing.
hopefully, I'm going to get to explain what's going on in this scene for me. Hopefully, you can see it there. It's playing about now. This is from a short film of Casey's called Snail.
Do you want me to talk as it's going?
Oh, if you wouldn't mind, because I just can't work out what's going on at this precise moment now.
Oh, you need to be in a dark room to see it, though. So this is a little girl who has found a snail that controls all the light in the world through its eyeballs. So when she pokes the little snail, all the light in the world extinguishes, and that's her in darkness trying to look around and figure out what the hell is going on.
There you go.
There we go. The light is coming. The light is coming up. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure if we're going to see the end of the film here. I just pulled the clip out because I didn't want to scare the audience and give them nightmares.
Okay, yeah.
If we don't see the scene in a second, we might not. Then go and check it out on Casey's Vimeo channel, because
that's a good example of a piece of work which doesn't really have much meaning. It was just something fun that I wanted to make, and my first kind of little experiment getting into short films.
I think we can find some meaning in there if we delve deep enough.
Oh yeah, we definitely can.
I don't want to get into the backstory of that little snail, but I was feeling some different emotions, some emotions that I didn't think I could feel when I witnessed that. See that expression on that young girl's face as she goes to press the button on his face there, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But, you know, I wasn't sure if it was a down the rabbit hole kind of moment, or if it was like making new friends with the snail. I don't know what was going on, but it was entertaining nonetheless, and I wanted to get you to explain it. The reason being is because obviously short film is a wonderful opportunity for people to get, you know, further their careers. Specifically that, I'm not sure if that one or one of the other ones, I feel like it was that one, picked up a couple of awards and picked up a couple of selections.
It was Snail, yeah.
Yeah, it was Snail, wasn't it? So how do you feel about festivals and awards in terms of being able to further your career in that regard? Because from my own perspective, it's been a kind of an interesting conversation. I feel like there's a lot of festivals, loads of different kind of awards. How do you even go about picking?
You obviously try and aim for the ones that have been going for ages and stand out and are reputable. But they're notorious for being the harder ones to get into. Or you kind of, I don't know. It's a.
I mean, you managed to pick up a few selections. That's why I kind of mentioned it. Obviously, you managed to get through that system. I wouldn't.
No, the amount of rejections that you don't see behind the scenes of submitting to festivals. Like. You get into some and some years, like
how many did you actually apply to?
Probably about 15 or so. And
so
out of
15,
that,
you got into 2 or 3, did you?
Yeah. Sometimes it just depends on like programmers' tastes. Sometimes it's not a reflection of your work. Sometimes it is. It depends what. I don't know, they might have a certain theme for that year. So you can't take it personally all the time, although it does affect you. And yeah.
Don't throw in the towel then. That's the message here. Don't throw in the towel if you don't get through.
Don't throw in the towel, but if you don't like that feeling, then maybe don't. I don't know, it's going to be tough for you.
Filmmaking isn't a career for you.
Yeah, maybe.
You into fair enough. That's absolutely fair enough. No, but just as I said, it was intriguing to me for a number of reasons, but mainly because a lot of people would say that, you know, advise you to go the film festival route and award ceremonies and things, and it's kind of
I think you need to put it out there. You need exposure, just like everyone does. So it's good to it's about finding the tier of festival you want, or like a festival that you might like to attend to. if you got into it, or it's also a price point. Some are like ridiculously expensive, or sometimes you can submit to like their early bird applications and to get it in there cheaper. But yeah, I sound really
you just go like, I want to go for all the BAFTA selection ones, and
oh yeah, and then didn't get into those. But yeah, I sound really negative. I sound negative. Like I don't want to discourage anyone. Like it's fun. It's just hard work.
Yeah, you and I both know that this is not a career for those people that can't deal with getting their heart broken every now and then. So I think it's important to set people up in that regard and help them understand what they're getting themselves in for.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all good, but you've done well out of it, from what I can understand. Even within your advertising words, I want to say that something happened with Cannes with the advertising stuff.
That was before filmmaking. I used to be an art director and entering the Cannes Young Lions competition, which is, if you don't know it, it's a international festival for young creatives, and you have a brief for a charity, and you have 48 hours to come up with an idea and submit a response. So it's like super high pressure, but it's really fun and challenging. And it's something that was away from the work that I was doing in an agency. So I entered that numerous times actually, and did well out of it, and had to represent the UK in the international festival, the festival in Cannes.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just good fun.
Sounds it. I mean, it's just from a number of perspectives, like, is that sort of thing that gives you confidence to then pursue it in terms of understanding like your own ideas and having confidence to pursue your own ideas in that regard?
I don't think it was about trying to get confidence from it with that. When my copywriter originally, the first time I entered, I didn't even know what it was. I literally just entered the advertising industry straight out of uni, and I was like, yeah, I'll do this fun brief with you. And I love problem solving. I think that's the whole thing that's appealed to me around like why I still like doing commercial stuff.
So it sounds very similar to filmmaking in every regard, because there's always
exactly
you've got to be on it with, for sure.
Yeah.
So what point did that change for you then? Obviously you went from university where you didn't do film or anything like that. Did you just go like one day, I don't want to do advertising in that conventional sense? Or sorry, what was your job before? Let's go for that. You said art director.
Yeah, so I studied design at uni, graphic design. I realised advertising seemed cooler and sexier at the time, so I actually I got my first job by just driving up to the agency. I had an old car, an old VW at the time, and someone in the car park, I went with my portfolio, and someone in the car park kind of complimented me on my car and said who I was there to see, and I said that I wanted to see like the creative director. Like now that I think about it, I cringe, but I was like, I think when you're younger, you're just a bit more bolshy. And he just so happened to not be in a meeting, and then I just like had a portfolio review and went through my work, and then got a placement out of it, which extended to, I ended up staying at the same agency for about 6 years. And then throughout that process, I think as like the real life work kind of set in, I started to get a little bit antsy. So I would like delve into like doing little film competition briefs and doing my own creative work, and doing bits of like my own editing and stuff like that. And they had like, oh, hang on one sec. My screen's just disappeared. There we go. They had like an editor working. They didn't really have like a film department, and then working as a creative gradually transitioned, like long story short, into being like a film creative, and then being their in-house director. That's a very condensed story, and then eventually leaving to go freelance and be freelance director.
Yeah, understanding that you had that kind of a bit of a gradual progression into it, though, is certainly interesting from my perspective, but definitely from the audience's, and understanding that there's a definite moment in time where you want to go, okay, actually, you know what, now we're going to go freelance, and there's not a sort of I always decided to be a filmmaker, and subsequently then freelance was a thing that I had to do immediately. You know, a lot of people understand that there's different ways and means of, you know, making that jump, whether it's making a decision in the first place or committing to another kind of, not necessarily another career, but another creative career that has the outlet within it, and then ultimately then making the decision to go freelance and kind of pursue your own means in that regard. It's just interesting to kind of get a bit of a different take from different people's stories, because there are just so many routes into the industry in that regard. And, you know, I know a lot of people that sort of pretty daunted by the idea of going freelance and kind of going like, oh, cool, I've got to find my own clients now. I've got to pay the rent. I've got to pay the bills. And that's not necessarily an easy thing to ever think about. So it's kind of interesting for me to sort of get a bit of a take from my guests in different regards, and to see how the different routes into it kind of have manifested in that regard, really, as well.
I think I had a gentle transition because I left the agency where I was working as a director to go freelance, but they were very supportive, and they gave me bits and pieces of work. So it was kind of like I was kind of weaned off them, if you like. Like they were kind of like my first regular clients, still working for my old agency. So it wasn't as daunting to go freelance.
Well, that sounds like a super smart way to go about it. I mean, rather than like myself, where it's just like, okay, cool, I'm just going to go and find some clients now, and I'll figure it out as and when.
How did that work?
Opportunity to work for your old client, it was probably way better.
Did it go? It must have gone okay, though.
I've just basically continually thrown myself in at the deep end in just every capacity. I think you just have to. I work well under pressure in that regard, and you just kind of have to make ends meet. I've been very fortunate that I've had a few people around me that would supported my crazy ideas and have kind of stuck by us in that regard. So I don't have been that far away from at least someone that didn't mind supporting us in some airbrain scheme. I think the worst thing that ever had to happen was I had to sell a car to pay the rent about 7 or 8 years ago. And then beyond that point, there was a very real situation where I was like, I don't want that to happen again. So you kind of have to realize that you got to get a bit organized. And there's this thing called finances that you've got to be at least somewhat attentive to. You can't just kind of live hand to mouth and hope that it works out. Because if someone doesn't pay you at the right time, that's not their fault. That's yours.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a wake-up call for me. I was like, if I don't have enough money in the bank right now and someone hasn't paid me, that's not their fault. That's mine for not being prepared. And that was one of those nice, immature moments where you kind of wake up and go, oh, this is my fault.
I had that drummed into me by my parents. They were more scared than I was. I think probably because they thought, "Wow, whose door am I going to come knocking on if I run out of money?" But I think I was sensible.
Good on you. It's definitely a good example of a stand-up situation where you're getting things right. So it's definitely a shining example for our audience and listeners out there, for sure.
Yay.
It's all good. It's all good. We've got to have some good guests on here that are definitely providing a solid example for people. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, thanks.
Let me just take the topics as well. So we've gone through that bit. It's all good. I am interested as well. This is kind of a topic to discussion anyway. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to get onto film in a second and the process of film. But one thing I actually forgot to talk to you about regarding the BFI funding thing, neglected, was finding a producer. Because I feel like this is actually really important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, producers are not easy to come by. Who did you actually find, and how did you find them? Was a question I meant to ask earlier. Sorry, listeners, for not following up on that earlier. That's my mistake.
It was a recommendation, actually. I met with a production company just about commercial work, trying to do that kind of hustle. And I think it was at the very end of the meeting, they were saying, "Oh, so what are you up to now?" I said that I was just finishing writing my script, talking about that stuff. And they said, if you need a producer, this person is good at so and so.
I'm kidding. That's simple.
And that person is Jen Corcoran, and she was working at an agency called My Accomplice at the time. So I cold emailed her and sent her the script and said, like, if you're interested in doing shorts, then I'd love to work with you. And she said she was leaving the company at the time to go freelance, but she would pass it on to her colleagues. And then she got back to me and read it and said she'd be up for it. So it was quite nice that she was interested in the story. She could have just like passed it on, but it was nice that she wanted to take it with her as she was leaving. And then just from there, the relationship has continued.
And now everyone is going to email her about their short films. So it's all good.
I hope so, but also paying work, because yeah, it's tough for producers.
Yeah, I don't envy that position, but mainly because I find it so hard to do myself. Whenever I'm trying to get anything organized and put the pieces together, we're fortunate enough. If you have a minute to check it out, I've got a guy called Bryn Musselwhite, which was on episode 1 of this podcast, who was talking all about what a producer actually does. And suddenly, I'm obviously very aware of it myself, but I just really wanted to help the audience and those listening out there understand a bit more about the job, because when I first started in this industry, I didn't know anything about any of the jobs that were attached to it. I just sort of saw the credits at the end of the film and was like, oh, cool, director. He's the one that made the film, right? I want to be him. And that was kind of like how the first inception of filmmaking started. And it was like, what does a producer do?
They have it so tough.
It's a tricky one for sure, but it's good that you've got a good person helping you out. I'm really happy for you in that regard. I'm especially happy that that was an easy process, or somewhat easy process in that regard. It sounds way more straightforward than I anticipated it to be fair. Like actually finding someone that's worth their salt, has the time, like you said, et cetera, really. So
yeah, I probably am glossing over it slightly.
That's all right. I mean, if you want, in that regard, if you want to shout out some people in that process, please do. I think we've got a question come through from our listeners at home. I keep forgetting about you guys at home. I keep referencing you, trying to bring context, but the reality is you guys are there. And if you have questions for either myself or Casey in that regard, then
hopefully it's not my dad trying to tune in.
Bless. Right, we've got, have you already discussed the process of getting a project / bidding? We kind of have. Also, by film, do you mean analog motion pictures? I love film from Certain Exposures on YouTube. Right, so Certain Exposures, thank you very much. I do mean film when I'm going to talk about film as well, absolutely. I'm just going to try and sort this out. I'm going to get you to answer a little question for me, and then I'm going to do some admin for my moderator back here. So, Casey, you've worked with...
Oh. Technical difficulty.
Cool.
Way back.
Back in.
The screen.
It's connected to European servers. It doesn't work with him. 2 seconds. Let's try this. All right.
We're back.
Hello.
We're back. Hey, Casey. Sorry about that. We're just
okay.
dealing with our wonderful tech issues. Hopefully, I'm lagging less for the audience at home now, which is nice. I'm not like got ghost hands and stuff like that. Hopefully, it's working better for you guys. So let's go back to that question from Certain Exposures. Have you already discussed the process of getting a project / bidding? We kind of touched on the basis of short films, but not necessarily bidding in that regard. We'll come back to that, but we're going to talk about film actually. And I do mean analog in that regard. Casey, you've had an opportunity to work with film in terms of motion picture. The thing that intrigued me the most about it, hand on heart, I feel really bad about it. I have yet to work with film. I've worked with stills 35mm, but I haven't worked with film Super 8, 16, all those sorts of stuff. You've had an opportunity to work with that. I've got so many questions about that. But first and foremost, how on earth did you even go about that in the first place? inspired you?
I've
Go on,
never.
let's go for a really corny question. What inspired you to write a film?
Oh, I don't know if it's what, but just because it's cool. Not because it's cool.
Nothing
It
wrong
just
with that. Nothing wrong with
it
that.
looks no. It just looks so. It just looks good, and it creates this texture. And I sound so wanky, but I never got to work. I never got to work on a commercial job shooting film. Like
Yeah.
you work on that sort of stuff if you're doing like music videos, which I'm not really in that world. And yeah, it costs money. Like doing car stuff, endless takes of things. It's not feasible. So for this. For the W series project
about film, isn't there? That's the thing that we want to get into here. Is like, I definitely was enamored with film growing up because most of the films that I watched growing up were shot on film. Well, all of them were back then. We hadn't really been in digital yet. Things that were digital were things like Digibeta and things, and it just was that's not a bad format for broadcast, but when it comes to film, it's just very unpleasant. So seeing film growing up was definitely what enamored me with the aesthetic of filmmaking initially. So, even
I've always had a soft spot for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the thing that's intriguing about this is because I was forced to work digitally in the early part of my career, I had to adopt that workflow and kind of missed out on this wonderful aesthetic that we were kind of always trying to replicate in that regards. How do you even go about? You shot on Super 8, right, for your Japan film?
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of probably gave me the confidence to then want to shoot the W series film on film. The Super 8, it was a competition. I like entering little competitions because it's like very quick ways to flex your muscles when you're not feeling creatively satisfied by commercial work. So that was you have to shoot a film. No editing on one roll of Super 8, and you have to submit a soundtrack to it separate.
So you're cutting down.
Yes, yeah. So you always fuck up. It's difficult, but it's fun. And then they shortlist them, and you don't get to see the finished thing until they play on the big screen.
So you don't know if you've got the exposure right. You don't know if you've. Do you like me to that sort of stuff? How I want to know. I want to know everything. To be honest with you, there's so many questions I've got about working with film. I feel like I need to get my brain in gear, so ask them in some sort of kind of coherent way. But the exposure. Let's talk about that. How do you go about exposing film when you use the digital cameras?
Well, I wasn't shooting. I was working with a cinematographer called Rachel Clark, who is shot on film a lot. And I'd known her through her boyfriend is in the industry, and I'd worked with him before. And I knew that she was a cinematographer, and I was just like, she's fucking cool. I want to work with her. Do you want to shoot this Super 8 thing? And she was up for that. And it was just so fun. That was like back to like making skate films. It was like with your mates. We got a Super 8 camera. She knew all about the exposures. I didn't know about that. But again, when you shoot, you feel so nervous. But before I shot it, I made a little animatic. So I knew roughly, because you had to time it before the reel ran out, and you had to time your music to it. So I knew that I wanted this to roughly last this many seconds. It would never be spot on. What was the question?
There's so many. Don't worry about the question. The wonderful thing about a conversation, this is not an interview by any way, shape, or form. I'm interested in hearing you talk about it because there's so many things that come out of that. I mean, ultimately, the critical bit is that it was fun. That you got
it was so fun, and then getting it back, and like I used to shoot a lot of 35mm when I was a teenager. Like I loved that, so it didn't feel too far removed from that. I was kind of used to the process of you just kind of point and shoot. Like the stuff that I would shoot would be kind of like documenting just being a teenager at the time and out and about. It wasn't anything like beautifully lit. I wasn't into that sort of thing. So I think that's the beauty of it. It's not necessarily about it being so stylized. It's kind of, it helps you capture a moment. It just feels a little bit more kind of authentic. And it's the surprise element of when you get it back, whether it worked or not. That's like the fun of it too.
I mean, you must have had confidence in your DOP there. I mean, that for me is one of the take homes. When I ask if you shot it, it's like, oh, quick. You know what? I actually got the right person for the job, and that's the critical bit.
Yeah.
It didn't go too hard. It was like there's still some elements there with the timing, like you said, understanding that you've got to essentially cut in camera, which is, I was lucky enough to do that as part of a college project once upon a time, which was actually a load of fun and something I don't even know how you would do that these days. We were on tape, so we were able to shoot on tape and go, okay, record, stop. Whereas with anything digital, it's all files. I'd actually fill up a card. Maybe that's how you do it these days.
Yeah. No way. It doesn't really work that way, does it? You take the fun out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's all in order. You'd have to kind of enforce it some other way. Maybe we should start a film competition. Maybe that's the next step. We've gone way beyond our stations already, and we're going to start a film competition. I've just decided right now, Casey.
It's good. It stops you. I was going to say it stops you being as precious as well, and sometimes you need to kind of strip those layers back.
I was going to talk about the development process of the film, but we'll get onto that for a second as well, because like you say about being precious in that regard. One thing about shooting stills on 35mm for me was that it made me cherish every frame. I was like, suddenly I wasn't just snapping away on my phone or on a digital camera in that regard. It was very much like I'm now looking at things very differently. I'm looking at all of the things in the scene. I'm looking obviously at the light and the shadows and things, but ultimately I'm really assessing what's in the scene. I don't just look at it. It's not a point and shoot anymore. Do you feel that translates to film as well? Sort of motion picture film as well. Is that the same regard? Do you find yourself paying more attention?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're aware of just like the sound of it, like running through the camera. You're aware that that's like money, that like just cliche of like money burning. So you're just like, well, it needs to be good. You can't just like shoot this over and over. And especially when we had to do an interview, which it seemed like a very bad idea to do a big group interview and shoot that on film at the time, but it worked well, and it was just about finding a way to shoot that would work for that format.
And this is on W series, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So to sort of trail back a bit there, in terms of the actual shooting process, were you in charge of the stock lens choice and those sorts of things, or did you very much leave that to your cinematographer?
No, that was through discussions of, I think, I don't really talk so technically. Like I know the aspects of like filmmaking and technical stuff, but I'm not going to ever say, oh, I want it to be shot on this lens, or it's kind of, I think it's more of like a conversation about talking to your DOP and saying, this is kind of how I think it should feel, if it should feel more intimate or just like more grand. I think that's the sort of conversation I had on that particular project. We did speak about stocks because there was a discussion of whether we wanted to shoot on black and white for some scenes, or whether they would be graded black and white. In the end, we had no choice because of the turnaround, and we had a very, very tight turnaround, and it was getting them out of the lab.
How quick can you get the film processed these days?
When did we get it? We shot, I think it was like the Wednesday, and we had it on the Friday to edit over the weekend. So because they all had to be in like the same batch or something, so we couldn't like have color and black and white because of the turnaround, and we needed them like the next day or so. We were stuck with that choice, which it worked out for the better because I changed my mind in the edit anyway.
I suppose if I don't want to get into that, but I suppose if you shoot color, you can go black and white. But the reality is, the stock handles the contrast completely differently. So that's a terrible suggestion.
No, yeah, I did ask the question. I was just like, what is the difference between grading it black and white and shooting it on black and white? Like, that probably seems like a really silly question to a DOP.
Not at all. Not at all.
Um,
Not at all. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening out there that wouldn't even know the concept necessarily, because again, we're just so used to everything being digital right now. But it's an important question for me, because certainly when we're looking at film as an aesthetic choice, not only is something it provides a look, obviously, but as a creative choice, not only it's something just about it for me anyway. The idea of it, again, from shooting stills, I'm not lucky enough to have shot film on it yet, but it's motion picture on it yet, because for a number of reasons, but it's definitely on the agenda. But knowing that it really focused my attention and got me to pay attention and look at things in a different way. And I love the fact that you mentioned the fact that it's you're not talking about necessarily lens choice, but you're talking about whether it's intimate, whether it's something close. That's the conversation you're having, and suddenly you're forcing that back into it when you're thinking about the image that much more. You're paying that much more attention to things in that regard, and it doesn't go unnoticed. That's the other thing. People don't necessarily know they're feeling it when they're watching it, but it doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah. So when do you think you're going to get round to shooting film then?
As soon as possible. I've definitely been scouting eBay for like Super 8 cameras, but that's why I wanted to ask the question about processing, because I mean, in film, in my work stuff, it's definitely come up really soon that we want one of the next projects we want to work on. We want to shoot on film, but because it actually lends itself to film in so many regards, I feel like that's going to give it away. It's kind of about analog medium in another regard. So much of my stuff is under NDA. This is so frustrating. We've got a really cool project coming up, which will 100% lend itself to film. So it's up to us to pitch it right. I mean, actually, this goes back to project and bidding from certain exposures. That question, we can expand it a bit now, is that ultimately there is this process of like, I've got an idea for a project. It might not be my own. It might be something that I'm working with collaboratively. And suddenly you've got to get that through the next part of the processes before you can start picking up cameras. And that's where we are with this one, actually. So we're, doing our best to communicate that one and justify creatively why we might want to use film. I like to think that in that regard, it's a bit of a simple conversation, but it's never that easy. I mean, what we're talking about is a feature documentary, potentially 3 single-hour episodes. So as you are aware, having done a couple of minutes of film for a commercial and the cost associated with that, when you're sort of talking about doing a full either hour-and-a-half documentary or 3 single-hour parts, shooting on film suddenly becomes a very costly question.
Yeah, you need a very good reason.
Maybe, fingers crossed, we'll get something out of it. Maybe we just, commit to doing parts of the film on film, parts of the film on film. The word film is starting to lose all meaning now. But your stuff looks great on film. I'm really grateful we get to ask you that question about it.
Me too. I'm happy that I got to shoot something on it finally.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, again, there's so many questions I've got about just the simple processes of shooting on it. Sort of the mechanics of it is one thing. And we'll have to get your DOP on here so she can talk to us all about that stuff, because that's not my area of expertise. Hopefully the audience can forgive me for not being able to talk them through a film camera, because I feel like I should know more about it. I feel a bit like a fraud in that regard, but it's it's such a wonderful format and medium. I love the fact that you can do so much with it. Creatively, like I said, the aesthetic is one thing to fall in love with, but completely another to actually get your hands on it and to start shooting at it and kind of just regard your filmmaking process in a completely different way. Kind of think about your subject slightly differently because you're paying attention in a slightly different way. It's not like, oh, we'll get another take. It's so much more preparation would have to simply go into doing everything so that you nail the shot. And I love the fact that you were able to sort of enjoy it in a fun sense, in for the Japan project and in finding these little competitions. Did they actually provide the film in that regard, or did you have to go and source your own stuff?
No, they didn't. You needed your own film to find your own film. Where did I get it from again? On 8mm is where I got it from.
Yeah. Simple process.
Got it from.
Just go on there and buy it, and that's it.
Yeah, I think you order it, and then I think maybe you can have it posted out to you. But I just went and picked it up because I just wanted it quickly. Also wanted to take a couple of roles on holiday, and that was just fun. Just making a little holiday film on Super 8.
Did you get a camera then? Did you scour for a camera? What have you got?
Yeah, after that competition,
Uh-huh.
I went and bought a Super 8 camera because I was just like, I love this, and
Okay, so I'm getting. Forgive me again, audience, for not picking up on that. But yeah, so you've got your own camera now after doing that, and you've actually been playing with that and shooting
yeah,
it. Yeah, cool. What have you
yeah,
got?
and
What is it?
it's I've forgotten. It's a
Amazing.
Canon 5. Oh, I can't remember. I actually
That's
can't
all right.
remember.
I totally read in my
I
research. I've just got these two bits of blank paper in front of me. There is questions, I promise. I'm joking.
I shot just before lockdown. I went to
It's on your
Iceland.
website, isn't it, though? Like the Japan film you've got, it does actually stay under in the blurb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So audience can go and
Yes,
check out
it
on
does,
Casey
yeah.
Hennessy website.
Yeah.
You can go and see what camera it was shot on.
Yeah.
Lens-wise as well, did this come with lenses, or is it a fixed lens
It's
camera?
it's a fixed lens, which I kind of like. I like that because if you're, I don't know, out and about, I wasn't going to be just like, I didn't want to take kit with me. So it was good fun. And I've also just bought I've bought a load of stuff to develop my own negatives and film stuff, just because I'm stuck with nothing to do. So just take up a new hobby. Yeah.
Better that than discovering you've got a load of imaginary friends. So definitely creating your own darkroom or negative space sounds great. Have you started yet? Have you got any results?
I'm waiting for it still, so I'm gonna find out.
Fair enough. I wasn't sure if this is something you'd embarked on a few weeks ago, and then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, look at this film. Are you going black and white, or are you going full color?
Color. I'm going color.
Oh wow! So you need the temperature and everything.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Yeah. Again, audience. Sorry, my ignorance is there, but my basic understanding of development. It's like black and white is you can do kind of not easily, but it's easier to do at home, right? And if you want to do color, then you've got to control the temperature of the chemicals and all this sort of fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a little kit which comes with like a thermometer and stuff. So if it fucks up, yeah, who knows?
Well, I will look forward to hearing more about this, and certainly it's inspired me to get on eBay and start looking for second-hand Super 8 cameras so I can start messing around with it. Just gonna consult my topics as well because we got onto film, which I'm really happy about. And I'm really happy that we got an audience member that was actually looking to ask a question about it as well, because it's one of those things that doesn't need to get left behind. For me, I love the digital world and I love how convenient it is, but there's something about learning the photographic principles, the old-fashioned way, the analog way, that really teaches you something else about how to actually construct an image. And in so many ways, the looks that people are emulating digitally have all come from kind of stock in that regard. So many are derived from stock or Kodak stock and all those sorts of things. And the looks that people are trying to achieve color-wise are all essentially derived from film in certain ways, shapes, or forms anyway. I was going to ask you about this as well, because we're that far into our podcast. Who won the caption competition on your Instagram? Is that your other half there? I can't put the picture up on the screen. I'm not going to do that to you.
He hates that photo. My boyfriend doesn't have Instagram and he hates that photo. So the fact that you've raised awareness of it.
For the audience listening, the picture is of a gentleman seemingly defecating huge amounts of manure onto the floor. And I found it particularly interesting and hilarious. So you should go and check out Casey's Instagram for such a fun-filled topic.
The best caption wins, so please comment.
Is the competition still open?
It's still open. It says the competition is over when the pub's open.
What's the prize?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
No. You can't leave the audience hanging there. These people have tuned in for us for an hour and a half. You thought we were going to struggle to fill 2 hours, by the way. I just thought I'd bring that up.
You get internet pop.
Listen for an hour and a half now, and they want to know what's the prize for the caption competition.
I think the prize will be proportionate to the caption.
Oh, you reckon? Okay, so
Yeah.
it's a really, really amazing one. You're gonna hook them up with a prize, yeah?
Yeah. I'll hook them up with a prize. I don't know what yet, but if there's something really good, I
I'm
will.
trying to look around your house there and see what you've got. There's a stereo in the background, audience. I think from that perspective, we can at least say that's a good prize.
I will personally do a painting of them.
Oh wow! There you go. Is that a portrait?
Yeah, like, hang on. If you see there in the corner,
Yeah.
that's a little painting I did. Have you been watching Grayson's Art Club?
I'm gonna lie to you. I have absolutely no idea what that is at all.
Oh my god, you should. It's
Please,
it's like a
enlighten us
a
and the
weekly,
audience.
a weekly, a weekly. I'm promoting it. A weekly lockdown show hosted by
Yeah.
Grayson Perry, and there's a different theme each week. And like people, the general public, have to submit their artwork, and it's just so fun. And that the week was portraits. So we decided to paint portraits of each other, myself and my boyfriend, and then I painted a picture of him in an ice bath. His expression of getting into an ice bath, because it brought me joy. So yeah, you should give it a go.
Everett and painting on people's faces. Okay, so Grayson Perry, lockdown art competition, portraits and stuff. Yeah. Okay, cool. We're checking it out. That's what we're going to do.
Therapeutic.
Have to report back. Sorry, audience, I don't have that for you right now, but we'll have to report back in probably a couple of episodes' time when I've learned how to paint. But I like the idea of trying out something new, so I'm totally going to give this a go. Everything else I'm trying right now is pretty dangerous and death-defying. We mentioned skateboarding earlier, but I like to think I'm actually okay at it right now. Trying to learn tricks in the garden is a fun one for me.
Oh, I want to give it a go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You've got the deck now, so you're halfway there.
Yeah. If anyone wants to donate some trucks and wheels, please do.
I mean, yeah, over here too, because you know. Well, Casey, thank you very much, honestly, for your time today. I mean, feel free if you've got any other questions for myself, or you've got anything you want to shout about. Obviously, now's your time. Now is your moment on the CVP Common Room podcast.
I'm not going to plug anything at all. I just yeah, it's nice to chat to another human that I have never actually properly had a long conversation with. To just
this episode's called
remember how to talk again.
All good. We can pretend to have a conversation. It's all good. We managed to fill the time.
No, thanks for having me.
I'm very grateful for having you on the show. I'm very happy that you were able to share some insight there. For those tuning in late, we've covered a whole raft of topics, things really important, like whether Casey had lied on her CV or not to get a job. Turns out she hasn't. So she's an honourable human being, which is great. We also asked her, what would her 5-year-old self think of her? Proud, which is just excellent, really. I'm really happy for you. A lot of people can't say that, so I'm grateful. We got to know a little bit more about her, which is wonderful. And obviously, you need to make sure you check in on Casey's Instagram to see how the progress of Tranquil Town.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for you to fill in the gaps there, Casey. You can leave me hanging if you like.
Tranquil Town, the short film, coming soon.
Coming soon. So obviously it's been delayed.
Whenever that may be.
The ongoing situation that we like to dance around as we talk about it. But I'm grateful that there is some light at the end of the tunnel in all of this. And hopefully we can all get out there shooting in the coming weeks. And honestly, all the best with that project, because it sounds really cool. That even the basic premise you explained very eloquently, I'm sure you've had plenty of practice at it. But it was really nice to hear a bit more about it. And certainly I'm sure the audience really appreciates the ability to hear just a bit more about that process. Certainly from my perspective, understanding that there's, ways and means of short film funding. They're not always the most straightforward, but, BFI, they're out there to help people. I mean, there's a whole raft of things and resources that are also out there that have different funding attached for different things. So, budding filmmakers, writers, directors out there that want to get involved. I mean, actually, this is an interesting part as well. We talked a bit about producers earlier, but this is a collaborative medium. This is a great time to get out and talk to directors, writers, other people, producers, and start talking about their projects. Help them get their short film projects off the go.
I agree.
Have you crewed your film yet?
Have I what? Sorry.
Have you crewed your film yet? Is it all staffed up?
Half of it. But at the minute,
going right here.
Yeah, Rose. It's actually
I'm going to help you. There we go.
it has to be. It's a Midlands story, so I want to support Midlands crew
Nothing wrong with
because
that at all. Those in the Midlands.
support the region.
Shout out for you.
Yeah, hit me up.
So hopefully this podcast can provide a service in finding you some crew as well.
Wicked.
But all the best, honestly, with that. I'm grateful we were able to talk about the funding process because it is such an important part of the filmmaking process. Getting out there and making what you can with what you've got is such an important thing. But developing those ideas and the whole processes of actually identifying how you're going to transmit your idea from your brain into the real physical world and make something of it. It's not as daunting a process as a lot of people believe it to be. And it's something, sometimes as simple as just committing pen to paper and accepting your idea. It might be shit first, but you need to develop it. And then someone might give you some money to help you make it.
And don't just wait for funding because a lot of the time it doesn't come. Just hustle and do anything you can. Do a cake sale if you have to.
I was at a bake sale, yeah? There you go.
Yeah.
Advice. Go from Casey out there, bake sale. That's the key to the real heart there. From my perspective, I'm always like, I'll just put my own money into these films and then hopefully that way no one else is holding us too accountable if the idea doesn't go brilliantly.
Good idea, yeah.
So good. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on what is, I think this is episode 3 with Casey Hennessy today. It's been a delightful guest. If you want to check out any more of the common room and what's going on, there's various seminars, lectures, different things from different brands, and a bit more information regarding all sorts of wonderful things. We will soon be on iTunes and Spotify as well. We'll reveal who our next guest is in the next, hopefully a few days. We're trying to get some real special people on. Obviously, we've had some wonderful special people so far, and we want to keep that going. But yeah, by all means, check out CVP's Common Room. Check out the Instagram for anything else coming up and updates in the meantime. Yeah, that's it for now. Thank you very much, guys. Casey, again, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope the film goes to plan. I look forward to checking in and seeing how it goes.
Wicked. Thanks for chatting.
All good. Take care, Kate. Bye-bye.
Bye.